Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Shinigami I am Uchiha Madara. Chapter 41. Hey, this is where I usually live. Following all the way, Nailu finally brought Uchiha Madara to a hidden place. Appearing at the end of Uchiha Madara's field of vision is a tall building. Although the area is not vast, it has a high-end atmosphere, which is incompatible with the surrounding desert. Compared with the stronghold where Xiaolong and the others live, it can be said to be a sky and a ground. As expected of Vasto Lord, to have such an abode. Uchiha Madara has to feel that it is a rare thing in Hueco Mundo to have such a magnificent residence. It's nothing, after all, I'm quite skilled in controlling spirits, and it's nothing to be able to establish such a stronghold. Nailu showed an alluring smile and said, "Let me introduce two other friends to you, Uchiha Madara. They are all like you, with a different heart. Companions, are they also Vasto Lords?" Uchiha Madara was puzzled, with his intuition that the one who could make Vasto Lord a companion must be Manos Grande of the same level. However, Madara was wrong. Nailu is different from others. Although she is a noble Vasto Lord, she has a kinder heart than a human. Never killing innocent people indiscriminately has always been Nailu's bottom line. On the contrary, those who prey on the weak are the targets of Nailu. Peishui, Dong Chaka, you two come out quickly, we have new friends again. Nailu's voice was as sweet as a silver bell, and when her voice came into the house, it immediately caused a wave of fluctuation. Accompanied by the sound of hurried footsteps, two tall voices came out of the house. Master Nailu, it is said that a new friend has arrived. Peishui looked around excitedly, but when his eyes rested on Uchiha Madara, he showed a look of vigilance. Although Madara's body is full of scars, she still exudes a special temperament. This feeling will never appear in an ordinary virtual body. Ijukas, Dong Chaka also looked at Uchiha Madara vigilantly. Although Nailu was with them, they were not afraid of Madara's evil intentions, but their instincts made them defensive. Hey, you two don't show such expressions, Madara is not a bad person, don't you feel it? Nailu laughed dumbfounded, she trusted her intuition. Whenever she looks into Uchiha Madara's eyes, she always feels a different feeling. Perhaps, this is another vain human nature. Nailu didn't know. The only thing she can be sure of is that Madara will not kill innocent people indiscriminately. It doesn't matter, anyone would do it instead. Madara doesn't mind being hostile. He was rather curious that a mighty Ijukas would be on an equal footing with two Jillians. This is enough to overturn his understanding of Hueco Mundo. Is this a cruel hellish world with a hint of kindness? You don't mind it, because Hueco Mundo is just too brutal. They're both instinctive too. When mentioning this cruel world, Nailu looked melancholy. Even if she is Vasto Lord, she is powerless to change anything, only to avoid indiscriminate killing of innocent people as much as possible. Let's go, I'll take you to find a place to rest first, your injury is too serious. Nailu forced a smile and quickly changed the subject. Under her leadership, the two soon came to a spacious and bright room. Boom! Suddenly, Nailu closed the door of the room. Her expression became serious, exuding a powerful aura. Uchiha Madara, can you answer a question for me? Nailu stared closely at Uchiha Madara's eyes, and asked in a cold voice, are you really hypocritical? Uchiha Madara was stunned, he really didn't expect Nailu to ask such a question. But with Madara's heart, it seems to have guessed a bit. Madara asked calmly, why do you ask that? Because I saw a different emotional fluctuation in your eyes. I have only seen that kind of feeling in human beings. Back then, Nailu had seen a scene in this world, and when she looked into human eyes, she read a lot of information from it. Even though there are treacherous, deceitful, arrogant, but more of innocence and kindness. All in all, that is the look of love. But Hueco Mundo's virtual is different. Bloody, cruel, brutal. Therefore, apart from Peishui and Dong Chaka, this is the most human-like look Nailu has ever seen. Human, have you ever seen a human? Seemingly touched, Madara's eyes also became serious. Nailu nodded. That's right, I've seen humans before. And you don't feel like a ghost, but a human in armor. Shu, I never regarded myself as Shu. You were right, I used to be a human being. Even with Shu's body, I am still a human. Uchiha Madara continued. Just like you want to know my identity, I also have something to ask you, Neliel. Nailu asked, What are you referring to? Natural Urankar. I see, you want to get back your original self. Now, Nailu finally confirmed the identity of Uchiha Madara. No wonder Madara possesses a human-like temperament. Because he is a human being himself. Unfortunately, even I can't quite make it to Urankar. Nailu sighed. Although she tried, she couldn't complete Urankar. Unless she had more powerful abilities, she couldn't complete Urankar at all. I see. Uchiha Madara didn't dwell too much on this matter. Even in his own strength, he imagines that one day he will be able to find himself Urankar. But, Nailu continued, another person in Hueco Mundo has completed Urankar by himself. Who is it? Lone Wolf King, Stark. Lone Wolf, Stark. Uchiha Madara frowned slightly. For some reason, when he heard this name, he always felt different. Stark is the strongest ghost I've ever met, even stronger than Reiatsu from Baragan. When mentioning Stark, even Nailu's eyes were full of fear. Stronger than Baragan. Uchiha Madara's eyes flickered. It seemed that the mystery of Hueco Mundo was beyond her imagination. However, it is precisely because Reiatsu is too powerful that there is no Shu who can stay by Stark's side for a long time. Because they cannot bear Reiatsu, most Shu will gradually turn into bones. Gradually, the word, companion, is very important to Stark. It's already out of reach. Nailu said regretfully. It's a pity, maybe the strong are doomed to be lonely. Lonely, Uchiha Madara murmured softly. He could feel Stark's loneliness. In the ninja world, Uchiha Madara had no other friends except Senju Hashirama. The relationship of equality is always established for the sake of equality of strength, and apart from Senju Hashirama, no one in the entire ninja world deserves Madara's respect. Over time, this feeling of loneliness gradually accompanied Uchiha Madara. But, loneliness and fetters always go hand in hand. Once you get used to loneliness, you will cherish the existing fetters even more. This is why Madara values Senju Hashirama. Because the two are not only opponents, but also partners, and represent a bond. You can recover from your injuries in peace. Do you have a purpose after that? Nailu smiled slightly and changed the topic. However, Madara's answer was beyond her expectation. Soul Society. A few simple words represent unparalleled self-confidence. You know, for most of Hueco Mundo, Soul Society is a forbidden place. It's not that Shu can't reach Soul Society, but because Shu doesn't dare to go to Soul Society. In this world, Shinigami's duty is to extract the souls of the virtual world and maintain the balance of reality, Soul Society, and Hueco Mundo. And once Shu breaks into Hueco Mundo without authorization, he will be killed by Shinigami. You really insist on going to the Soul Society? Although Nailu has seen everything in Uchiha Madara's eyes, she still wants to persuade Madara. Even with her strength, she still didn't dare to break into the Soul Society without authorization. If it were Madara, it would undoubtedly be a moth to the flame. Is it really worth it? Without much explanation, Uchiha Madara remains silent. As a man who once stood at the top of the ninja world, he will naturally not be afraid. What's more, although Hueco Mundo is a world of the jungle, it is full of primitiveness and barbarism. In such a world, even after years of precipitation, it will not be able to grow to a certain height after all. What's more, the scene witnessed in Hueco Mundo reminded Uchiha Madara of the former ninja battlefield. Hollow is like a ninja, just an insignificant speck of dust in the Uzumaki of war, worthless at all. Such a world disgusts Madara. The atmosphere was silent, and even the sound of breathing could be heard clearly. Neliel took a deep look at Madara, then turned and left the room. After finally finding a void with humanity, we will part soon. What a pity. On the other side, a sand pile somewhere in Hueco Mundo. The landscape here has been completely changed, and it is the place where Uchiha Madara and Fendor fought before. Brush. Suddenly, two figures appeared on the sand. Let that Grimjow get away. Escaped. Are you kidding me? If he was really desperate, both of us would have died long ago. If Uchiha Madara had been present, these two voices would have been familiar. Charlotte Kulufeng, Aburama Lita. The two of them were responsible for hunting Grimjow before, but they returned in vain, leaving themselves so scarred that they almost died at the hands of the Leopard King. It's disgusting. Next time, I must kill that guy Grimjow, or I won't be able to vent my anger. Abramelita was panting heavily with anger. It's just that when he saw a bloodline on the sand pile, his heart sank slightly. This blood couldn't belong to Fendor and the others. Charlotte Kurufeng opened her eyes wide in surprise, with a look of horror on her face. Although he thought Fendor was not as strong as himself, they were still top experts in Zai Palace. Didn't expect the two of them to be killed like this. Really them. Abramelita's voice even trembled because of being too surprised. He felt the familiar Reiatsu wave from bloodline on the sand. The two looked at each other, and a thought came to their minds at the same time. Fanduoer and the others were killed by Uchiha Madara. It was actually killed. Is this provoking the majesty of Zai Palace? Charlotte Kurufeng's face was gloomy. As the saying goes, beating a dog depends on the owner. Although the two of Fendor can only be regarded as small roles in Hueco Mundo, they are the most loyal followers of Baragan. Even the ruthless king of Hueco Mundo would be thunderous. Charlotte Kurufeng and Abramelita both had cold sweat on their foreheads, as if they could imagine the wrath of the skeleton emperor. Your Majesty must be informed of this. A mere newborn Adjukas dares to challenge His Majesty's majesty. Almost without any hesitation, the figures of the two disappeared on the sand pile in an instant. Just after the figures of the two of them disappeared, Enenwatra steps out of a shadow. Looking at the distant sky, he muttered in a low voice, "Neliel, Uchiha Madara, soon you will know the taste of despair." The hazy night sky is accompanied by a desperate night. In the depths of Hueco Mundo, the Void Night Palace, which symbolizes power and sanctity, exudes suffocating silence everywhere. In the center of Zai Palace, on the towering throne, endless majesty emanates from the body on the throne. That seemingly inconspicuous figure is the king who controls the sky. King of Hueco Mundo, king of skeletons. Baragan Lusenbairn. There was no movement in Norda's palace, even the breathing of the Manos Grande could be clearly heard. Owing to being oppressed by the coercion emanating from the Baragan, the Manos Grande below trembled, their eyes full of horror. It was a fear born of the precipitation of time, and it was also an irresistible fear. Fear is a disease. Once conquered, it creeps into your soul, it has soiled your peace of mind. This kind of unforgettable fear, like a nightmare, exists in the heart of all Manos Grande, lingering. Well, Baragan let out a heavy rage, breaking the silence like a thunderbolt. Out of an instinctive reaction, all Shu raised their heads at the same time at this moment, casting fearful and fanatical gazes at the skeleton emperor on the throne. Charlotte Kurufeng, Abramelita, I already understand what you two said. The seemingly calm and ruthless words carried a bit of unknown anger. Just like the eve of the storm, it is always so calm. The faces of Charlotte Kurufeng and Abramelita changed in shock. Facing the roar of the skeleton emperor, they didn't dare to raise their heads at all, for fear of offending bad luck at this time. It's just that even if they are silent, they are filled with fear in their hearts. Facing the risk of death, Charlotte Kurufeng finally spoke. Your Majesty, according to our investigations along the way, the Adjukas named Uchiha Madara is fleeing in the territory controlled by Neliel. Neliel, there was surprise in Baragan's words. As the king of Hueco Mundo, he naturally knows the strength of Nailu. The same as Vasto Lord, although Nailu's strength is not as good as him, she is also one of the top powerhouses in Hueco Mundo. How could Vasto Lord, who even the Skeleton King fears, get involved with a newly born Adjukas? How is this going? There was less anger and more confusion, and it was clear that Baragan's anger had subsided. Although the two of Fendel are one of his most loyal subordinates, they are only two good Jillians after all, and they are far behind Vasto Lord. Choosing to clash with Vasto Lord for the sake of two Jillians is not a wise choice. In fact, even though Baragan is the king of Hueco Mundo on the surface, there are still many Manos Grande who do not obey his rule. And these thorny existences are not lacking in the top powerhouses. Nelly Lu, Holly Bell, Ulquiorra. Even if Baragan has the power of aging, he can't be sure to deal with them at the same time. Therefore, the Skeleton Emperor can only open one eye and close one eye, and do not interfere with each other. Your Majesty, whether it's bloodline or Reiatsu, it shows that Neliel saved that Adjukas. Charlotte Kurufeng wiped off her cold sweat, for fear that the Skeleton Emperor would blame her. However, contrary to his expectations, Baragan not only did not show any anger, but instead acted unusually calm. Neliel, The deep voice was like the death knell, constantly wafting in this empty palace. Heaviness, depression, despair, dead silence. When the Manos Grandes below heard this voice, their bodies couldn't help shaking, as if they had experienced fear from the depths of their souls. Gulu. Charlotte Kurufeng swallowed heavily, not daring to make a sound. Having followed Baragan for decades, he knew that only when the Skeleton Emperor was angry to the point of ultimate would he be so calm. Perhaps something big will happen to Hueco Mundo. When darkness sweeps across the sky, when the sky is full of stars and stars are shrouded in darkness, it indicates that under this sky, endless anger is breeding. The anger of the Skeleton King will eventually spread to every corner of Hueco Mundo like an irresistible torrent. Let's go. Although time doesn't exist for me at all. But it's a good choice to find something interesting in such a boring day. Slap. With two bone arms resting on the skeleton throne, the figure that Countless vainly regarded as a god finally stood up. This is the first time in decades that Baragan has voluntarily left the throne. Whether it's Nilawelu or Uchiha Madara, once you offend the gods, how can you be forgiven so easily? There was a mad killing intent in those pitch-black eyes. The majestic Reiatsu gushes out from Baragan's body, sweeping around like Wang Yang. Feeling this unspeakable terror Reiatsu, the Manos Grande were both awed and excited. It is because they follow the strong, follow the strength, that they submit to the Baragan. That intoxicating power is like a bright navigation light in the dark night, guiding them forward in this sea of blood and sin. On the other side, a place far away from Zai Palace, that hidden stronghold. Thanks to the ability of high-speed regeneration, Uchiha Madara's injuries are gradually recovering. After successive battles, not only has his strength increased, but he has even become more proficient in controlling Reiatsu. What's more, absorbing the power of the two of Fendor, his Reiatsu becomes even stronger. Enenwatra. He chanted the name softly, but a strong killing intent flashed in his eyes. If he hadn't been seriously injured and provoked to this level, Uchiha Madara would have killed Enenwatra long ago. But Uchiha Madara found a surprise. As his strength increased, so did his pupil power. Given the opportunity, the three Tomo Sharingan can evolve into a Mangekyo Sharingan. Mangekyo Sharingan is a watershed, and it is also a threshold that a Uchiha tribe must cross to become a truly strong man. Different people have different forms of Mangekyo Sharingan and different abilities. Space-time ninjutsu, Tsukuyomi, Amaterasu, Kamui, etc. It can be said that the abilities possessed by each pair of Mangekyo Sharingan are terrifying. With the strengthening of Reiatsu, Uchiha Madara felt that the power of the pupils was gradually increasing. It seems that because he had opened Rinnegan, his eyes no longer needed to break through evolution, and only needed to continuously improve Reiatsu to naturally break through. I don't know what kind of ability I will have after opening the Mangekyo Sharingan. Uchiha Madara closed his eyes. He faintly felt that these eyes seemed to be unusual after rebirth, as if they had more powerful abilities. This particular body also seems to be different, perhaps evolved into the highest form, and after opening Mangekyo Sharingan, he can use Susanoo's ability again. Madara doesn't know, and doesn't need to know. The only thing he has to do is to continue to become stronger. Kill, devour, evolve. As time goes by, he seems to have gradually adapted to the rules of this world. Fighting is the only theme, and killing is the eternal style. The cruelty of Hueco Mundo, the ruthlessness of the battle, and the devouring reality make this dark night sky reveal a desperate silence. As if the night never ends, as if the battle never ends. But, no matter how long the night is, the day will always come, and power is the only light that illuminates the night. The spacious room returned to silence, and even the sound of breathing could be easily heard. Thanks to the ability of high-speed regeneration, he recovers quickly even if he is seriously injured. After resting all night, Uchiha Madara's injury is gradually healing, and even Reiatsu is almost recovered. However, the unavoidable disaster is always with us. Boom boom boom. A hasty knock on the door broke the peaceful atmosphere, and Uchiha Madara frowned slightly. When he opened the door, he saw the figures of Peishui and Donde Chaka. Just by observing at first glance, Uchiha Madara saw a hint of panic in their eyes, and even a kind of panic. Uchiha Madara, quick, get out of here with us. It was too late to explain too much, Peishui said out of breath. Uchiha Madara calmed down and said, "Why? Baragan, king of the Hawako Mundo, they are coming." Mentioning Baragan's name, Peishwe and Donde Chaka turned pale. They were all overwhelmed by the skeleton emperor's vicious reputation, and even Lord Nailu didn't dare to provoke Baragan, let alone these youngsters. Baragan, isn't he in the Void Knight Palace? Why did he appear suddenly? Has our whereabouts been exposed? Although he guessed the reason at the first time, Uchiha Madara not only didn't panic at all, but had a kind of expectation. He really wanted to see what kind of power the legendary king of Hawako Mundo possessed. In the hall, 4 people gathered. Nailu looked at Uchiha Madara, smiled and said, "It seems that your physique is more special than I imagined, and you recovered from your injuries overnight. In this way, the situation is not too pessimistic. I can feel a massive Reiatsu approaching, and no one except Baragan is blatantly spreading Reiatsu at Hawako Mundo. So we have one last chance." Nailu paused and sighed. Run away, the only way to survive is to run away. Although Nailu is also a Vasto Lord, she is still not sure about dealing with Baragan. After all, being able to become the king of Hawako Mundo not only depends on the majestic Reiatsu, but more importantly, the ability to age. Controlling aging is tantamount to controlling time, which is also tantamount to controlling immortality. Escape. Where can I escape? A disdainful arc appeared on the corner of Uchiha Madara's mouth. For him, there is no concept of escape, only fighting is the only way to survive. Nailu shook her head and said solemnly, "The edge of Hawako Mundo, the place near the boundary wall, may be able to escape there. Even he will not take the risk of stepping into the black cavity easily. This is our only chance." Black cavity. The black cavity is the channel formed by the virtual tearing space, and it also becomes the boundary. Without too much explanation, Nailu took Uchiha Madara and the 3 to leave. On the other side, Hawako Mundo somewhere. Did you run away? It's really whimsical. Wearing a crown on his head and wearing a luxurious black robe. Even though Baragan only has a human-sized figure, he exudes a terror Reiatsu that makes the whole Hawako Mundo tremble. Just like a lion inspecting a pride of lions, it is also like a king inspecting a knight. Wherever the king of Hawako Mundo went, everyone trembled. Leaving Void Knight Palace. Do not. For Baragan, every place under this sky is the palace of the void. Only he is the eternal master of Hawako Mundo. Your Majesty, the direction they are fleeing from seems to be the boundary wall. Charlotte Kulufeng's face was gloomy, and he naturally guessed that Nailu was planning. It's okay, wouldn't it be more interesting to throw them into the boundary and let Zutu devour them? As light as Baragan's words may sound, there's a chilling eeriness in them. The crown of Baragan keeps shining in the wind, as if proclaiming the majesty of the king of Hawako Mundo. As time goes by, the footsteps of death are getting closer and closer. Hawako Mundo fringe. Oops, Baragan actually came. Nailu's face changed in shock. She didn't expect Baragan to let go of the heirs of the king of Hawako Mundo and come here in person. Things seemed to be getting worse. Suddenly, a Reiatsu appeared that made the sky tremble, and even Uchiha Madara was surprised. This was the first time he felt a terrifying Reiatsu that could almost condense into substance. King of Hawako Mundo, is it finally here? Uchiha Madara murmured in a low voice, with no fear in her eyes. On the contrary, Peishwe and Donde Chaka panicked and even felt suffocated under this powerful Reiatsu. Neliel, Uchiha Madara, do you think I won't appear if you escape here? Along with a voice from hell, the voice of Baragan appeared. Uchiha Madara, Neliel, we finally meet. The gloomy and deep voice reveals a bit of despairing coldness. Baragan floats in the air, like a floating ghost, and like a ruler over the darkness. Baragan. Nelilu gritted her teeth and spoke word by word. Even though she is Vasto Lord, she still feels invisible oppression when facing the king of Hawako Mundo. We must not relax, otherwise the consequences will be disastrous. Nailu's eyes were fixed on Baragan, wary of his every move. An opponent at the level of Baragan can easily be killed if he is not careful. This gaze, it's more like fear than vigilance. Right, Neliel. Baragan's voice was cold and heartless. If it wasn't for Shu being an emotionless species, if it were a human being, he would have had goosebumps all over his body, and that creepy feeling would definitely be unforgettable for a lifetime. Years of accumulation have given Baragan an invisible aura. Great Emperor's Haki. There is an invisible aura in every hand and foot, deterring the sky. He is the one and only king, the master of Hueco Mundo. It is also an invincible god. You are the king of the Hueco Mundo, Baragan. Facing Baragan's aura, Uchiha Madara was not only not affected in the slightest, but the corner of his mouth raised an arc instead. As it happens, Uchiha Madara, who has the form of Susan, bears some resemblance to Baragan. Same humanoid shape, same skeleton body, even a comparable haki. This momentum. Although Baragan's eyes were empty, he could still feel some surprise from them. For some reason, when he looked into Uchiha Madara's eyes, he felt like he was in a match. That kind of supercilious look will never appear on a newly born Ijuka's. Unless Uchiha Madara has long since awakened to the mind and has the potential to transform into Vasto Lord. It's really interesting. No wonder you dared to kill Fendor, because you have the potential to become a Vasto Lord. If you let your evolution continue, once you transform into a Vasto Lord, I'm afraid even I won't be a threat to you. But Baragan's voice paused, his eyes became extremely fierce, and a shocking Reiatsu gushed out of him. The mighty Reiatsu solidified, and the sky seemed to be pouring down with rain. Dark night sky, heavy gray rain. Sticky, thick, dull. There was an uneasy atmosphere in the air, and the biting cold wind made people feel desperate. In an instant, Baragan's aura reached its peak, causing Nailu and the others to feel unmatched. It doesn't matter who you are or what abilities you have. Under my abilities, everyone is equal. Baragan flipped his backhand, and a huge double-bladed axe appeared in his hand. The sharp blade of the axe reflected the cold moonlight, which invisibly added a bit of chill to him. You dare to fight against the great emperor, you should turn into dust and regret it slowly. Baragan raised the world-exterminating axe fiercely, and the strong spiritual power turned into a slash, which was as fast as lightning and slashed downward. Oops, you guys get out of the way. Nailu's heart sank, this slash even shocked her. In desperation, Nailu put her hands on the shoulders of Peishway and Dong Chaka, and rescued them both. At this moment, Nailu witnessed a scene that left her dumbstruck. I saw Uchiha Madara took a step forward, and unexpectedly performed a ringing spin that was not inferior to her, easily dodging the slash. Not only that, Uchiha Madara even launched a counterattack. Fire style, the fire is gone. A hot flame spit out from his mouth, enveloping Baragan's body in an instant. Zzz. The flames were blazing, causing the temperature around him to rise sharply, which actually suppressed Baragan's aura. The ability of flames, the skillful ringing. Nailu looked at Uchiha Madara's back in a little surprise. She didn't expect that Madara's strength was far beyond her imagination. With these two abilities alone, Uchiha Madara has the capital to rampage Hueco Mundo. It's too scary, Mrs. Nailu, let's run quickly, it is impossible to be his opponent. Peishway was out of breath, feeling undecided. If it wasn't for Ni showing his hand to save him just now, he might have been split in half long ago. Yeah, run, Lord Nelu. He wouldn't be the king of Hueco Mundo if he was so easy to kill. We're not just up against a Vasto Lord, we're up against a god. Dong Chaka's face turned blue, and his body trembled uncontrollably. He's just a tiny Jillian, and when he ever thought he'd fight the king of the Hueco Mundo, it's a fantasy. Looking at the two people who were almost scared to pee, Nailu sighed helplessly, but when she was about to speak, she was interrupted by Uchiha Madara. God, how ridiculous. There is no such thing in this world. All the gods are nothing but means of deception. Besides, don't be afraid of being deceived, for the world is built on deceit. Uchiha Madara's momentum was like a rainbow, and there was a look of contempt in his eyes. Whether it is the king of Hueco Mundo, or the god of Hueco Mundo, it is just a deception born under the power of submission. Fear the invisible because of power, fear the invisible because of power. Then, the frightened heart trembles. Well. Accompanied by an angry roar, the blazing flames were instantly extinguished, and a desperate Reiatsu swept around like a torrent of steel. The flames die, revealing the face of Baragan. Nearly half of the luxurious black robe had been consumed by the flames, and even Baragan's bony body had black scorched marks. Clearly, even the king of the Hueco Mundo was traumatized by the fire. For letting me suffer this kind of injury, I will never spare you little ants. Ants, dare to hurt me. Unparalleled anger welled up in his heart, and Baragan no longer had the aura of a king, but instead fell into a state of rampage. He who always regarded himself as a god would be hurt by a tiny Ajukas. No matter what, I couldn't swallow my breath. Unforgivable, absolutely unforgivable. Do you know who you are provoking? You are beyond your control. Baragan roared, his eyes full of murderous intent. He held up the axe that destroyed the world, as if he wanted to split the world. At this moment, Baragan is unrivaled. Even so, however, he was taunted by Uchiha Madara. Spirit of Hawako Mundo, you're wrong. Is there any difference between your pissed-off childishness and the others? For the Skeleton King, Uchiha Madara didn't have the slightest respect, but looked at him coldly. In his opinion, there is no difference between the ugly Baragan with its huge Reiatsu and the nine-tailed beasts of the ninja world. I see, are you laughing at me? Baragan's face was sullen and suddenly calm. But everyone knows that this is just the calm before the storm. Suddenly, Baragan jerked his head up and let out a deafening roar. The roar went straight into the sky, as if piercing through the entire sky. Oh ha 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 ha. Baragan raised those two bony fingers, and said coldly, it's so small, you are so insignificant. You overreaching guy, do you know who you're telling your fake behavior to? I am Skeleton Lord, God of Hawako Mundo, Baragan Lusenbairn. Whether Ajukas or Vasto Lord, the differences and powers between you are insignificant. Will and freedom, birds and beasts and plants, moon, stars, sun, all are insignificant. In this world, only my power is unique and absolute. Anything else is insignificant. Baragan suddenly clenched the axe and disappeared instantly. Fast forward to the ultimate spin. Rewind. Even Nailu couldn't keep calm this time, because even she couldn't perceive Baragan's whereabouts. Oh my god, it's too late. Uchiha Madara he. Dong Chaka opened his eyes wide in panic, and spoke intermittently. Looking in the direction of his finger, he could see that Baragan's figure had appeared behind Uchiha Madara. Brush. With a merciless axe, he cut Uchiha Madara's body down the middle. Oh my god, Uchiha Madara is split in half. Pei Shui screamed, her feet were weak, and she was trembling. Baragan gripped the axe of annihilation tightly, and angrily said, this is the fate of fighting against the Emperor, and the ants should die with repentance. Just when Baragan was about to swing the axe again, his face suddenly changed. Huh, what's going on here? Baragan could feel that this, Uchiha Madara, in the eyes didn't show any signs of Reiatsu fluctuations, more like a hallucination. Boom, a strange smile appeared on the corner of the mouth of Uchiha Madara, who was hit by the axe of annihilation, and immediately turned into a thick white mist and dissipated everywhere. The white mist filled the air, but Uchiha Madara was nowhere to be seen, which made the Skeleton King very angry. Your ability to control flames and cast illusions at the same time is indeed amazing. But, these are all just tricks. Even if you hide like a bug, you can't change the shackles of fate. Baragan swung the axe of annihilation angrily, and instantly set off a violent sandstorm mixed with Reiatsu. The entire sand pile was flattened in an instant, and there was no place to hide. Wow, both Shui Pei and Dong Chaka were pale and could hardly breathe. If it wasn't for Nailu standing in front of them, he would have suffocated to death under the majestic Reiatsu. HMPH, Baragan, don't kill innocent people just for so-called excuses. With her life threatened, Nailu finally chose to act. She held the double-headed javelin flat in front of her body, and quickly condensed a thick Reiatsu. Sero. The pink Sero blasted out instantly, blasting straight towards Baragan's back. HMPH. Are you impatient too, Neliel? Baragan didn't even turn around, and just flicked the axe easily to bounce Sero away. With a bang, the pink Sero smashes a huge crater in the desert, but can't hurt a hair of Baragan. Even the Vasto Lords have a power gap. This way, it will be more interesting, right? Suddenly, the figure of Uchiha Madara appeared directly in front of Baragan, with his hands in mudra, performing ninjutsu. Earth-style Earth Flow River. Water-style Water Whip. Lightning-style Furious Thunder Tiger. Fire-style, Extinguish the Fire. Wind-style, Thousands of Winds. Uchiha Madara formed a seal in an instant, and 5 ninjutsu with completely different attributes were instantly cast, rushing to Baragan from all directions, and all this happened only between the fire and light stones. How is it possible? In addition to flames, there are 4 other abilities. How terrifying is his talent? Nailu's heart was in turmoil. Even though she had lived in Hueco Mundo for so long, she had never seen Hollow with multiple abilities at the same time. Not only Nailu, but even Baragan was stunned. He suddenly found that Uchiha Madara was like a bottomless pit, and he could never see through the details. The more so, the greater the threat. He must be killed, otherwise. At this moment, Baragan really wanted to kill. Seeing the 5 kinds of ninjutsu getting closer and closer, but Baragan was indifferent, and let out a disdainful laugh instead. Humble ants, why do you think that this method can defeat me? My ability is above everything, even surpassing the world. The unique ability, aging. Powers that compete with each other, there is no so-called equality. Look, this is the power possessed by gods, the power that cannot be matched. You ants, despair under the power of aging. Baragan opened his mouth and let out a long, deathly sigh. Breath of death, breath of death. The black energy swept across the 4 directions like mountains and seas, and whenever this energy passed by, there was a decaying breath of death. As if all things withered, all living beings died. Baragan's whole body was wrapped in black energy, and his breath reached its peak. Although the 5-attribute ninjutsu seems powerful, it is not enough for Baragan to see it. In mighty, not as good as his aging. Decay everything, annihilate vitality. Aging is the real power of God. How so? Uchiha Madara's face changed slightly, and he could feel a deadly aura from that black energy. If you accidentally get a little bit of it, you may pay a heavy price. The power that Baragan possesses seems to be beyond his imagination. Something even more shocking to Uchiha Madara happened. Wherever Baragan walked, the dunes crumbled, as if crushed by a force of death. Seeing this scene, Uchiha Madara suddenly recalled what Baragan said before, only his strength can dominate everything. What I control is aging. No matter what it is, as long as it gets close to me, it will continue to age and eventually die. Baragan raised his palm to Uchiha Madara, and said coldly, "You too, Uchiha Madara." A breath of death. A mass of black energy spread from Baragan's palm, spreading towards the place where Uchiha Madara was at an unimaginable speed. Uchiha Madara's heart was covered with a shadow. He made mudras with his hands, and shouted angrily, "Fire style Huo Huo extinguish." The powerful flames of hell with superior coverage spit out from Uchiha Madara's mouth. The fire was raging and burning. However, the result is still not satisfactory. The scorching flames are still like a drop in the bucket, and the moment they come into contact with the black energy, they disappear into nothingness. The power of unequal power is fully reflected at this time. Uchiha Madara rewind. Once you get that energy, you're sure to die. Nailu's face was pale. Although she hadn't fought Baragan before, she was keenly aware of the power of aging. There have been countless Shu who died tragically under the power of aging, decayed, ended, and died tragically. Oops, this kind of power is incomprehensible. Even Uchiha Madara finds it tricky. If he has Rinnegan he might be able to block the breath of death. But there's nothing 3 Tomo Sharingan can do. Zzz. The black energy is lightning fast, and even if Uchiha Madara reacts ahead of time, it cannot escape the erosion. Just at this critical moment, Uchiha Madara made a backhand shot, and a thick water barrier rose out of thin air. But it's useless. The seemingly thick wall of water is like a piece of fragile white paper before the breath of death. Just by virtue of this gap, Uchiha Madara escaped the first attack of death breath. What a formidable ability. No wonder he can dominate the Hueco Mundo. Uchiha Madara frowned. No matter how proud he was, he had to admit that the power of aging was too terrifying. Even a little bit of it would turn into bones in an instant. Neliel, try to fight me in vain, and your end will be the same. Brush. The figure of Baragan suddenly appeared beside Peishui and Dong Chaka. When was he? Before Peishui could speak, his body twisted uncontrollably. By force of will, I can age your bones with just one touch. Baragan had no expression on his face, and what he did seemed to be crushing an ant. Wipe the card. Affected by the broken bones, Peishui wailed in pain, and his limbs were broken. Donde Chaka came to Baragan's body, and before he touched his body, he was hit by a huge axe, his skin and flesh were broken, and even his internal organs were exposed. Every time they get close to the Baragan, the body slows down uncontrollably. In terms of fundamental injuries, this is an unequal battle, and it is also a battle without any suspense. Unbelievable, right? That's what death is. From this moment on, you will all die under the power of aging. Farewell, two tiny ants. Baragan raised his axe and struck at the two men. Stop it, Baragan. With a ringing sound, Nailu appeared in front of the two of them in an instant, with the double-headed javelin swung across, barely blocking the blow of the axe that destroyed the world. Clang. With a crisp sound, the ground where Nailu was on collapsed. Her face was pale, and she was struggling to support. The gap in strength made it too difficult. It's a terrifying ability, but the outcome is uncertain. Uchiha Madara appeared behind Baragan, and the Reiatsu in his body quickly condensed into a long thunder sword, stabbing sharply at Baragan's back. HMPH, small tricks. Baragan snorted coldly, and exhaled another breath of death. ZZZ. In the same way, the thunder sword condensed by Reiatsu was corroded by the breath of death. That unimaginable speed reveals despair all the time. Not only that, due to the close distance, Uchiha Madara did not escape this breath of death this time. Oh no, Uchiha Madara's eyes flickered, and he could only watch helplessly as the breath of death gradually enlarged in his eyes, but he had no time to escape. Get closer, get closer, get closer. The black energy ends up amplified. Human beings can have hope because they cannot see death. However, this time Uchiha Madara finally experienced the feeling of death. It is impossible for light to shine everywhere, but where there is light, there must be darkness. Darkness invades, death comes. Under the eyes of despair, the breath of death is about to corrode the mask. Approaching with desperate eyes. Sighs of death and despair are like the shackles that cannot be escaped. Call out. At this critical moment, the three-tomo Sharingan in the center of Uchiha Madara's pupils rotated rapidly, and a mysterious pupil power emanated from it. Illusion. At this moment, Baragan's eyes became dull, as if he had fallen into an infinite illusion. The breath of death that was originally under his control just stopped in the air. Uchiha Madara survived the catastrophe. He was less than 1 meter away from death. Ring to turn. Almost in one go, Uchiha Madara's figure appeared in the rear in an instant, putting some distance away from Baragan. The current pupil power is not enough to confuse him for a long time. Uchiha Madara looked at Baragan solemnly, and only after fighting would he realize the difficulty of the king of Hawako Mundo. It turned out to be an illusion. Baragan roared, and with his tenacious will he finally broke free from the illusion's shackles, but it made him angry. It's unbearable that the mighty king of Hawako Mundo is being tricked by illusions. You ants, how dare you despise the majesty of the emperor? With a roar of endless hatred, black energy gushed out of Baragan's body like an ocean. Under Baragan's deliberate control, the breath of death gathered into a majestic wave, rolling towards Uchiha Madara like a black cloud crushing a city. Since you are not afraid of death, then I will let you experience something more desperate than death. Baragan's stern voice was creepy. He deliberately controlled the breath of death to form a gradually shrinking wall, gradually pushing back Uchiha Madara's retreat. Death at the hands of Shinigami is the greatest punishment for you. Baragan raised the axe of annihilation and slashed down. A slash condensed by Reiatsu cut through the air in an instant, and slashed fiercely at Uchiha Madara. This level of slashing is not enough to hurt me. Despite being in a difficult situation, Uchiha didn't panic at all, instead evading Baragan's slash with the three-tomo Sharingan. But that's exactly what Baragan wanted to see. Boom. Under Baragan's deliberate control, the slash tears the space. Suddenly, a dark voice appeared behind Uchiha Madara. Humble ants, not only the Void Night Palace, but even this sky, every inch of land in Hawako Mundo is mine. And you will die in soul society with despair and humility. Baragan raised his skeleton palm and shook Uchiha Madara in the air. The majestic breath of death turned into a sharp blade and stabbed Uchiha Madara. At this point, there are only two options before Uchiha Madara. One is to face the aura of death, but the consequences are self-evident. The second is to be forced to go to the underworld, but they have to face abrupt obliteration. All in all, both options are a near miss. Uchiha Madara. Nailu shouted anxiously from behind. Since Baragan's body was wrapped in the breath of death, she was powerless to do anything. HMPH, I never imagined that I would be forced to this extent. There was no anger, no remorse, just the same calmness as always. Even when cornered, Uchiha Madara remained calm. Boundary. So what? If you don't go to the end, how will you know what kind of surprise will be at the end? Perhaps, this is an opportunity to open another door. Even if it's Soul Society, even if it's Jutsu, the only regret is that I couldn't kill you, King of Hueco Mundo. Uchiha Madara took a deep look at Baragan, and a cold-killing intent flashed in his eyes. Just when the breath of death was about to invade his body, Madara finally made a decision. Uchiha Madara stepped forward and was forced into the black cavity. From now on he will stay away from Hueco Mundo until the moment he is able to return for revenge. But that day will not be too far away, because this man is Uchiha Madara who once stood at the top of the ninja world. Some hatred will always be remembered, even if it has been buried for a long time and destroyed, it is destined to resurface in my heart, like a phoenix nirvana. Once the flames of hatred are ignited again, the ending will definitely be suffocating. Stab it. As Uchiha Madara's figure completely submerged into the black cavity, the huge space crack was completely closed. Nailu looked at the place where Uchiha Madara disappeared, with a look of melancholy. For some reason, she felt an inexplicable sense of loss in her heart. Maybe it's because it's so hard to meet a guy with a heart. Baragan, you fool. Nailu gritted her teeth, and a Sero hit Baragan's back, but was blocked by the breath of death. Ha, this is the end he deserves. It's just a newly born Ijukas who dares to challenge the god of Hueco Mundo. Even if he can escape the pursuit of Kutu, even if he reaches the Soul Society, it will be difficult to escape Shinigami the Zanpakuto. However, you, too, should be punished. Baragan raised his axe to attack Nailu, but was blocked by a figure. Why kill each other? Isn't it a perfect thing to have a partner? There was an indescribable loneliness in this voice, a desire to have a soft spot for his companions. Stark. Baragan withdrew the axe of Destroyer fearfully, and did not choose to strike again. Although he hadn't fought, Baragan could feel that Stark's Reiatsu was even stronger than him. Baragan isn't stupid enough to take on two Vasto Lords at the same time without certainty of victory. HMPH, I'll spare you this time, Neliel. Baragan snorted and left with his men. Originally, he and Nailu didn't have a deep hatred, so he wouldn't take the risk of losing both. After Baragan left, the atmosphere returned to tranquility. Looking at Nailu with dim eyes, Stark remained silent. He could feel loss and guilt from those clear eyes. Do you think he'll survive? Nailu spoke suddenly, breaking the silence. Maybe Soul Society is the best place for him. Stark looked up at Hanyu and sighed softly. Boundary. The moving pitch-black space seemed to have no end, like an abyss. Nightmare-like memory. Escape. Only by running away desperately can you save your life. Once you stop, death will come. Judgment. Something that does not exist in theory. No Reiatsu, no signs of life. It cannot be defeated by any means, even Reiatsu. Woo 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 woo. Zutu is like a rampaging beast, advancing unreasonably in the dark passage. With every step forward, the baptism of death accelerates. In front of the huge Jutsu, Uchiha Madara's figure is so small and fragile, as if it will be crushed if it is easily crushed. No matter how powerful the ninjutsu is, no matter how powerful the Reiatsu is, it cannot stop Kutu, not even for a moment. Apart from fleeing. The only way is to meet death. Run away, keep running away. This is the only belief. The ray of hope is at the end of the passage, almost within reach but elusive to catch. Because Jutsu has caught up. The figure that represented destruction continued to magnify in the eyes, the dawn dissipated, and hope disappeared. Is there really no choice but to die? Do not. And that strong desire to survive. If you want to change the world, you must first have a firm belief and constantly strengthen your own strength. Guys who are too weak can only talk about it, but nothing can be changed at all. It's ironic, is it finally my turn to become such a weak person? Uchiha Madara murmured in a low voice, and a dazzling light burst out from her gradually dimming eyes. In a moment of desperation, an unimaginable Reiatsu erupted from within Uchiha Madara, and the blazing light illuminated the dark passage. Under the light of the dawn of hope, the seemingly endless passage finally came to an end, and the chance of a narrow escape was just ahead. As long as you catch it, you can live. The blood boiled all over his body, and Reiatsu rolled, and all of them gathered on the thick mask. The power of the pupils increased rapidly, and the strength continued to grow. Neliel, the appearance of Baragan flashed in my mind. At this moment, Uchiha Madara seemed to wake up. That's the feeling. I finally found it. There is unprecedented excitement in this laughter, as if a lion that has been sleeping for a long time has finally awakened. The light is shrouded, and the end is near, and everything seems to be over. The sky was clear and cloudless, with a gentle breeze blowing, and the warm sun pouring down on the earth. This is the Soul Society, not only the place where many souls live, but also the world where Shinigami live. The styles of Soul Society and Hawako Mundo are completely opposite. They not only have day and night, but also have bustling streets and dense figures. Of course, the huge Soul Society is also divided into two areas, Jinglingting and Rukongai. Among them, the Jingling Court is located in the center of the Soul Society, where the nobles of this world and the unattainable Shinigami live. The scope of Rukongai is wider, and it is the place where most of the ordinary summoning souls live. As the name suggests, Jingling Court is even taller. In the eyes of countless souls, having the opportunity to step into the Jingling Court will be the glory of a lifetime. As for being able to become a Shinigami, that is an unimaginable dream. Soul Society is somewhat similar to Ninja World. The same classical Japanese style, the same unique architecture, and more importantly, the strict hierarchy. Ordinary souls will generally choose to form a family with several other equally lonely souls, and they will become a new family from then on. But, the souls living here also have gaps in strength and talent. If a soul has spiritual power, it has a chance to become a Shinigami. Shinigami not only represents power and status, but also power. To become a strong person in Soul Society, the first condition is to become a Shinigami. As a life form with a very high concentration of spirit particles, Shinigami has the ability to surpass human beings, and can also fight against virtual. However, because of the high concentration of reishi in the body, Shinigami is also Shu's favorite food. Shinigami shoulders the responsibility of defending human beings, guiding and purifying the virtual, returning them to the Soul Society, maintaining the balance between the two worlds, and preventing the world from becoming unstable and perishing. Most importantly, Shinigami is the master of the Soul Society and has a unique right to speak. At this time, somewhere outside Rukongai, a huge gap suddenly opened in the calm sky. Stab! Even a black cavity can be easily seen through the space crack. Accompanied by a majestic Reiatsu storm, a dying figure flew out of the crack, and then fell to the ground in embarrassment. This figure has long black hair and is covered in purple armor. Uchiha Madara. This Shiyuzibo Madara is unconscious and dying. It is already a miracle to be able to survive from Jutsu. Well, Uchiha Madara let out a muffled grunt in a daze, and the moment the severely injured body moved, there was a crisp cracking sound. Card wipe. A tiny crack appeared in the center of the armor, followed by countless cracks, and with a bang, the entire armor was completely shattered, turning into a purple robe covering Uchiha Madara's body. With a flick of a finger, with tenacious will, Uchiha Madara finally regained consciousness. He struggled to open his eyes, but found something that excited him. The mask covering the face appears to be shattered. His blood was boiling and his arms were shaking uncontrollably. The moment his palm touched the mask, he took it off easily. Urankar. Through the light refracted on the mask, Uchiha Madara saw a face deep into the soul, which was his own face. Finally out of the shackles. There was an inexplicable light in Uchiha Madara's eyes, and there was a bit of excitement. At this moment, two hurried footsteps and two childish voices suddenly came from the woods behind him. Yin, it's too remote here, let's go back quickly. Matsumoto, don't be afraid. I saw a figure falling from the sky just now. Someone may be injured. The footsteps got closer and closer, and finally two figures appeared in front of Uchiha. What caught Uchiha Madara's eyes was a boy with short light purple hair. There are blue pupils in those slender eyes, coupled with the raised arc at the corners of the mouth. The boy's first impression is like a cunning fox, full of mystery everywhere, which makes people feel on guard. Beside the boy was a slightly green girl. Although he is not very old, the pair of white rabbits on his chest already have a certain curve. Obviously, when the girl grows up, she must be a beautiful woman who can overwhelm the country and the city. Ichimaru Jin, Matsumoto Rengoku. The two were childhood sweethearts, born in the extremely poor place of Rukongai, and their relationship is unusual, and it can even be said that they depended on each other. As an ordinary soul with ordinary birth and no status, wandering around the outskirts of Rukongai on weekdays is the greatest pleasure for the two of them. Ichimaru Jin happened to be nearby the moment the previous black cavity appeared. As a genius, Ichimaru Jin possesses extremely keen perception. When Uchiha Madara's Reiatsu appeared, Ichimaru Jin immediately took Matsumoto Rengoku to this uninhabited area. Ever since, the two met Uchiha Madara by accident. Silver, be careful. Matsumoto Rengoku carefully followed behind Ichimaru Jin. His bright eyes closely watched Uchiha Madara, for fear that he would do something out of the ordinary. After all, it was a terrible thing for a man who was injured all over to appear suddenly in this desolate area. Don't be afraid, Rengoku, he should be harmless. Ichimaru Jin squinted his eyes, and despite his young age, he had extraordinary courage. He came to Uchiha Madara and asked, "Are you okay? Little ghost, is this the Soul Society?" Uchiha Madara stood up with difficulty. The pain from the wound made his expression a little uncomfortable. After a rancor, Uchiha Madara's body changed dramatically. The armor covering the whole body completely disappeared, turning into normal human skin. But this seemingly fragile layer of skin has amazing hardness, as if covered with a layer of skin. Not only that, but even Reiatsu in the body has undergone a qualitative change. As we all know, the Reiatsu of the virtual is very different from the Shinigami. It was violent and chaotic, with a hint of hostility, just like a wild beast. Thus the Shinigami can sense the virtual Reiatsu in an instant. Shinigami's Reiatsu, on the other hand, is not only gentler and more stable, but also easier to control. Therefore, methods such as Kido and Bakudo were born. Although Uchiha Madara is a void, after a rancor his Reiatsu has completely transformed and become very stable. Reiatsu like Soul Society would not be any different at all if it wasn't exposed on purpose. More importantly, even the pair of 3 Tomo Sharingan has changed. Although he has not evolved into a Mangekyo Sharingan, he can use his pupil power to perform self-hypnosis, thereby subconsciously covering his own breath, thereby performing Reiatsu camouflage. Of course, this kind of camouflage is useless in front of Zeon. Soul Society. Of course, this is the poorest area in all of Rukongai. Ichimaru Jin squinted his eyes. His eyes seemed casual but concealed a touch of vigilance. He was very wary of the man who suddenly appeared in front of him. Soul Society. It seems that this is Ishido's hometown. It's really interesting. Uchiha Madara stood up and glanced around with great interest. When he saw the sun hanging high, he felt a sense of emotion in his heart. Where there is darkness, there must be light. It seems that I haven't seen the light for several months. Recalling the few months in Hueco Mundo, it was like living in hell. There is simply no other option than endless killing. The law of the jungle preys on the strong. If you do not abide by this law of the forest, then only death awaits you. The dark night, the bloody air, and the suffocating atmosphere are the impressions that Hueco Mundo brings to Madara. After arriving at Soul Society, everything changed. Warm sunshine, blue sky, ecstatic air, and even a kind soul. Stay away from the chaos of killing, stay away from bloody corruption. At least on the surface, Soul Society is more like the old ninja world. Seeing that Ichimaru Jin was safe and sound, Matsumoto Rengoku also mustered up the courage to come to Uchiha Madara and asked in a low voice, "Are you Shinigami?" "Shinigami? How could I be that kind of thing?" The corner of Uchiha Madara's mouth raised an inexplicable arc. Not only is he not a Shinigami, but he is also a ghost who is inseparable from Shinigami. Huh, that's weird. If it wasn't for Shinigami, you would have this level of Reiatsu in you. Ichimaru Jin stared closely at Uchiha Madara, a little suspicious of his identity. This kind of Reiatsu. Suddenly, Ichimaru Jin's pupils shrank, as if recalling the thing that made him hate to the bone. Just then, Matsumoto Rengoku broke the conversation between the two. "Oh, you are seriously injured, let's go to our house first." Matsumoto Rengoku, with the heart of a pure girl, is single-mindedly trying to make Uchiha Madara recover. Uchiha Madara looked at the two and fell silent for a while. He could feel the familiar Reiatsu waves from both of them. Even if it is very weak, it shows that the two have huge potential, and because they are new to Soul Society, after careful consideration, Uchiha Madara still agreed to Matsumoto Rengoku. Leaving the remote and quiet wilderness, Uchiha Madara followed Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku to Rukongai. The spacious street is bustling with people, although it is not prosperous, it is a bit lively. Compared with the deserted and defeated Hueco Mundo, this place is already considered to be more popular. Along the way, Uchiha Madara is observing different spirits. He found that not every soul has spiritual power. Even if the girl's soul has spiritual power, the degree of thinness is negligible. After some comparison, Uchiha Madara discovered that Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku could be called geniuses. Eventually, they crossed most of the street and came to a humble house that is the home of Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku. Chapter 51. Although the house is small, it has a unique style. Especially the carefully crafted windows are able to welcome the baptism of the setting sun. Slightly Spartan but with a warm ambiance inside, Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku have built a residence and their home in Rukongai. It turns out that Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rengoku are just ordinary souls in Rukongai, and they don't know each other. Until one day, while wandering on a certain mountain in Rukongai, Ichimaru Jin met Matsumoto Rengoku, who was hungry. Ichimaru Jin gave her a piece of persimmon to satisfy her hunger, and set the date of meeting Rengoku as her birthday, and the two became friends from then on. The sun was setting, approaching dusk. A wooden table is placed in the center of the house, and Uchiha Madara, Ichimaru Jin, and Matsumoto Rengoku sit around the table in 3 directions. After recuperation, Uchiha Madara gradually recovered from his injury and gradually adapted to the stable Reiatsu. Apart from his heart, he is no different from an ordinary soul. Are you really not a Shinigami? After a long silence, Ichimaru Jin broke the silence. Uchiha Madara was silent, responding only with eyes. Then why do you have such a powerful Reiatsu? After hesitating for a long time, Ichimaru Jin finally expressed the question in his heart. Although he lives in the impoverished area of Rukongai, it is not that he has never seen Shinigami, but he hates Shinigami. All because of that man. Tall build, short brown hair, black eyes. On the surface, he appears to be a man who always smiles gently, but is actually a man who is ruthless in order to achieve his goals. That tall figure is deeply engraved in Ichimaru Jin's heart and will never be erased. The reason why Ichimaru Jin hates Shinigami is because he witnessed that tragedy. On the way to collect firewood, Ichimaru Jin accidentally saw Aizen, who was holding Hogyoku at the time, colluding with 3 Shinigami, and saw the wounded Rengoku lying on the glade. Although Rengoku managed to survive the incident, he was witnessed by the young Ichimaru Jin. Because of this incident, Ichimaru Jin felt resentment. Even hating Shinigami, he was born with the idea of becoming a Shinigami. Because only then will there be a chance to join Gote 13 and assassinate that man. This is why Ichimaru Jin is so vigilant. If Uchiha Madara is a Shinigami, he will kill without hesitation. Uchiha Madara shook his head, and said softly, I'm just a soul who has just arrived at Soul Society, and I have nothing to do with the whole Soul Society. Little ghost, what is your expression, testing me again and again? Uchiha Madara emanated an invisible haki that swept every corner of the room. Matsumoto Rengoku's expression changed, and he was about to scream but was stopped by Ichimaru Jin. Don't worry, Rengoku, he meant no harm. Ichimaru Jin smiled and squinted his eyes. Although he was young, he was precocious and could analyze a person through his eyes. At the moment when Uchiha Madara was unhappy, Ichimaru Jin didn't feel any murderous intent from those haki eyes, and that was enough. However, what Ichimaru Jin did next took Uchiha Madara by surprise. Well, it was just a misunderstanding. Ichimaru Jin seems to be like a fickle fox, always smiling, completely covering up his inner thoughts. What a horrible brat. Not even Obito. Being able to be praised by Uchiha Madara is enough to show how terrifying potential Ichimaru Jin has. You have a Reiatsu of this level, it's a pity not to be a Shinigami. Ichimaru Jin narrowed his eyes, changed the subject again, and said with a smile, speaking of which, I really want to be a Shinigami too, Mr. Madara. Shinigami, how do I grow a Shinigami? Uchiha Madara asked patiently. In this new world where there was nothing, he was eager to get more information. Although Asido had provided a lot of information when he was in Hueco Mundo, it was very vague. Hey, it seems Mr. Madara really doesn't know. Ichimaru Jin squinted his eyes and said, the Soul Society is divided into two parts. In addition to the Rukongai where we are, the other part is the Jingling Court. Since the Jingling Court is separated by a wall, we cannot step into it. These are the Rukongai common sense. As the name suggests, Jinglingting is the place where Shinigami and nobles live. There are two ways to become a Shinigami. Ichimaru Jin raised two fingers and said with a smile, the first one is the internal recommendation of Jinglingting, and selects outstanding talents from each noble to enter the Junyang Ling Academy for training. Of course, Mr. Madara, this method has nothing to do with Iskan. And the second method is to select people with excellent spiritual power from Rukongai for training. This is also the only way for our Rukongai residents. Recruitment to the Shinyang Academy is held every year, but the requirements are very strict. This is no secret in Rukongai. After listening to Ichimaru Jin's explanation, Uchiha Madara suddenly realized. The so-called Maoling Academy is actually the same as Konoha's ninja school. Cultivate academies with excellent potential through enrollment, and then become Konoha ninjas after graduation. The so-called Gotei 13 is equivalent to the village of Konoha Shinobi, and its duty is to protect the safety of Jinglingting. Mr. Madara, this year's Maoling school admissions will be held in 3 months. Maybe you can try it. I want to be a Shinigami too. Ichimaru Jin said with a smile. He doesn't hide his thoughts, becoming a Shinigami and killing that man is the only purpose. Shinigami, Gotei 13, I don't know if I can awaken Rinnegan after possessing the power of Shinigami. Uchiha Madara looked down at the snake-shaped long sword hanging on his waist, and the feeling became stronger and stronger, as if there was a kind of power hidden in it. This is also why Uchiha Madara wanted to become a Shinigami. Perhaps this is the only way to awaken the Rinnegan. Time, for the residents of Rukongai, is a vague concept at all. Since the residents of the Soul Society are all spirit bodies, age has different meanings for them. Perhaps a person looks only a teenager on the outside, but has actually lived for decades. Therefore, most of the residents of Rukongai have lived for many years, and they are used to a comfortable life. Since the new enrollment of Maoling Academy will be held in 3 months, Uchiha Madara did not plan to leave during this period, but chose to live with Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rangaku. In contrast, Ichimaru Jin did not object. After all, he knew that Uchiha Madara had no malicious intentions. More importantly, Ichimaru Jin could sense that there were many secrets hidden in Uchiha Madara. As a man who once stood at the top of the ninja world, Uchiha Madara's vision is also sharp, and he can also see the secrets hidden in Ichimaru Jin's heart. However, the two tacitly maintained a certain tacit understanding. During these leisurely days, in addition to collecting information about the world, Uchiha Madara often hides in the room alone in the dead of night. His purpose in doing this is to better control Reiatsu so that he can better hide his identity. Even if there is no flaw now, Uchiha Madara still hopes to make it seamless. Fortunately, after Arankar, his pupil power was further improved, and he finally had the see-through function. Madara has been able to clearly see the flow of Reiatsu in the body. By constantly observing, adjusting, and calming down, he became more adept at controlling Reiatsu. In fact, from the perspective of Reiatsu, Uchiha Madara is not inferior to a vice captain at all, but there is still a certain gap compared with the captain-level figure. After all, those who can become the captain of Gotei 13 are not ordinary people. In addition to Reiatsu's toughness, they also have Zanpakudo, Kido techniques and other abilities. This world is far more interesting than I imagined. I don't know what kind of strength the captain of the Hudding 13th team will have. Uchiha Madara closed her eyes and tried to control Reiatsu again. The passage of time, like sand slipping through the fingers, disappears in a flash. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, a knock on the door broke the silence. Uchiha Madara opened his eyes only to hear Matsumoto Rangaku's voice. Mr. Madara, dinner is ready. There was a hint of timidity and curiosity in this immature voice. Obviously, Matsumoto Rangaku is still a simple and ignorant girl who has not been tempered by Gotei 13. Creak. Uchiha Madara pushed open the door, but saw Matsumoto Rangaku standing at the door with a smile on her face. She pointed to the wooden table behind and smiled, Mr. Madara, you haven't eaten all day. Really, I really forgot about it. Uchiha Madara was a little emotional. When I was in Hueco Mundo, it was stupid not to have a meal. Because the concentration of Hueco Mundo's spiritual power is too high, Void is so weak that it can survive by breathing. After evolving into Jillian, they must continue to devour their own kind if they want to survive. Compared with the peaceful days of Rukongai, the time in Hueco Mundo is completely living a life in a primitive society. Only then did Uchiha Madara realize that his heart had become numb and cold without knowing it. Perhaps because he is used to killing, he has not felt the existence of humanity for a long time. Matsumoto Rengoku smiled beautifully. She thought that Madara really just forgot to eat because of carelessness, but she didn't think that Madara was bloodthirsty and killing in those few months. On the wooden table, delicious meals are neatly arranged. Although the number of meals is not much, they are very well presented and look delicious. The aroma wafts to every corner of the house and whets the appetite. It was still a familiar scene. Uchiha Madara, Ichimaru Jin, and Matsumoto Rengoku were sitting in different directions of the wooden table. Then let's go. Matsumoto Rengoku laughed heartily. She was the first to pick up her chopsticks, as if enjoying the peaceful moment. Mr. Madara, hurry up and eat too, but don't dislike my poor craftsmanship. Matsumoto Rengoku blushed and said shyly, however, this dish is made of silver, so the appearance is so poor. Hey, Rengoku, don't speak ill of me in front of Mr. Madara. Ichimaru Jin smiled. Although he said so, he didn't mean to blame at all. Uchiha Madara looked at the two children. A smile finally appeared on such a cold face. Although he has no heart, Madara still has human emotions. Although he was in the ninja world, he was very high and cold, and he didn't have any friends except Senju Hashirama. But after coming to Soul Society, perhaps because of the familiar feeling of returning to the ninja world, Uchiha Madara's dusty heart gradually melted away. Although the path of destiny is full of anxiety and unknowns, it is also a rare thing to be able to enjoy the moment of this order. Gradually, Uchiha Madara merged into this harmonious atmosphere. Perhaps because of the hit-time relationship, Uchiha Madara deliberately restrained the innate haki, and he didn't want to hurt the two children. Mr. Madara, have you decided to enroll in the Junyang Lingyuan Academy in 3 months' time? Ichimaru Jin swallowed a piece of delicious yakiniku and asked suddenly. Yes, you also know that I have a huge Reiatsu. Wouldn't it be a waste not to control the power of the Shinigami? Madara does want to be a Shinigami. Because his intuition told him that only after possessing the power of Shinigami, he would have the chance to awaken Rinnegan again. Ichimaru Jin laughed. I see, I hope Mr. Madara goes well. That's right, Yink and I both want to become a Shinigami. If Mr. Madara can gain a firm foothold in Gotei 13, we will have something to rely on in the future. When mentioning Gotei 13, Matsumoto Rengoku looked adoring. In her opinion, every dead Shendu is a great big shot. Of course, becoming a good Shinigami is also Matsumoto Rengoku's dream. However, when Matsumoto Rengoku mentioned the 13th team, Ichimaru Jin's eyes flashed a cold light. Although he hid it deeply, this scene was still seen by Uchiha Madara. Although the cold light faded away, it was still captured by Uchiha Madara. What kind of grudge does this brat have with Shinigami? Uchiha Madara was puzzled. To be reasonable, if it is not to the extent of hatred, there will be no such eyes at all. This shows that there are people in Shinigami or Gotei 13 that Ichimaru Jin hates. Mr. Madara, can you tell us a story about your past? Matsumoto Rengoku's innocent smile, and only by touching her did he discover that Madara is a man full of charm. Although Madara is usually taciturn, her behavior reveals a confident haki, and this kind of temperament is difficult to cultivate. Stories. I don't have any stories, I'm just a Uchiha ghost. Uchiha Madara didn't tell his origin, let him bury that magnificent memory in his heart. Sorry, Mr. Madara. Matsumoto Rengoku smiled awkwardly. She thought she had uncovered Madara's scar, and apologized quickly. Oh, Mr. Madara, what are your plans if you become a college of Shinyang Academy? Ichimaru Jin narrowed his eyes and quickly changed the subject. Although he could see that Madara was preoccupied, he pretended not to care. Intend. Oh, I forgot Mr. Madara is not familiar with Jing Lingting. Ichimaru Jin laughed. All Gote 13 members are Shinigami. Each team has a captain and a vice-captain, and each team has a different occupation. Of course, I don't know the specifics. Ichimaru Jin shrugged. What he said is common sense, but the specific situation can only be understood after joining the 13th team. But these are not important to Ichimaru Jin at all. As long as he finds the man and kills him, that's enough. I see, let's make a decision in 3 months. Uchiha Madara didn't answer. In his opinion, it doesn't matter which team he joins, the more important thing is to gain the power of Shinigami. The three enjoyed this rare moment of tranquility, which felt like a warm home. Gradually, a wonderful night was spent amidst laughter and laughter. After this time, the barrier between Uchiha Madara and Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rangaku disappeared. It's not perfect, but it's a good start. Time flies, and before you know it, another month has passed. In addition to controlling Reiatsu on a daily basis, Uchiha Madara is also gradually adapting to his days in Rukongai. More importantly, his relationship with Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rangaku has also taken a step further. Although it is not possible to form a new family like other souls, it has established an invisible bond. Once this kind of bond is established, it will only become ingrained over time and will not disappear casually. After all, friendship is the most precious only when it is the most desperate. After a beautiful day, the sun sets and the evening gradually approaches. However, the room was different from usual. Without Matsumoto Rangaku, just Uchiha Madara and Ichimaru Jin sitting around the wooden table. Hey, that's really strange. Counting the time, Rangaku should have returned home a long time ago, why haven't we seen her yet? Ichimaru Jin wrinkled slightly every day, rarely showing a puzzled expression. Maybe it's time to take a break. Uchiha Madara said calmly. In his opinion, Rukongai will not have any smiles happening at all. It is far away from killing, far away from the hustle and bustle, and you can enjoy moments of peace and tranquility every day. Compared with the former ninja world, it can be called a paradise. No, there's no one left for Rangaku but us. If it wasn't for the break, there's a good chance. Ichimaru Jin's face was gloomy, his heart was beating suddenly, as if something bad was about to happen. Inner torment, seconds seem like years. Finally, Ichimaru Jin couldn't sit still. He said anxiously, "Sorry, Mr. Madara. I have to go to the suburbs to see. The place is too remote. I don't worry about Rangaku alone. Mr. Madara, please wait here for us." Uchiha Madara nodded, and Ichimaru Jin's figure disappeared from his vision. However, shortly after Ichimaru Jin left, Uchiha seemed to remember something, and frowned slightly. Where Matsumoto Rangaku left is where the black cavity once opened, could it be? Uchiha Madara's pupils shrank suddenly realizing that something was wrong. In fact, Soul Society is not a 100% safe place. In the remote place on the edge of Rukongai, there are often false rumors. Although I don't know whether the rumors are true or not, such rumors have always existed, so it can be seen that they are not groundless. Must go and see. In order to ensure the safety of Ichimaru Jin and Matsumoto Rangaku, Uchiha Madara decided to go there himself. He stood up abruptly and left the room in an instant. Fortunately, the place where they are located is very remote and deserted on weekdays. Even if he uses the ringing wheel, no one can find it. Relying on the perfect ringing, Uchiha Madara quickly rushed to the suburb, but saw a scene that caught him off guard. A black passage appeared in midair, black cavity. At the end of Uchiha Madara's field of vision, a hideous Shujang and Ichimaru Jin were fighting. Boom! A false punch knocked Ichimaru Jin into the air, and then rushed to the unconscious Matsumoto Rangaku. No, Rangaku, wake up! Blood spilled from the corner of Ichimaru Jin's mouth, and he roared at the top of his lungs. As much as he wanted to kill that Shu, he was powerless. After all, what a genius possesses is only potential, and it takes time to accumulate strength if he wants to transform it. Roar! The hideous Shu let out a roar, and the monster looked greedily at the unconscious Rangaku, and let out a piercing laugh. Clack, clack. With heavy steps, Shu gradually approached Matsumoto Rangaku. Just one step closer, and that clawed hand can grab Matsumoto Rangaku. Do not. Seeing this scene, Ichimaru Jin's eyes were filled with despair. At this moment, the figure of Uchiha Madara quietly appeared in front of Matsumoto Rangaku. Brush. swinging the snake-shaped long sword lightly, cut off Shu's body in an instant. Blood splattered and poured on Uchiha Madara's body, gradually staining the white clothes red. At this time, the pupils of Ichimaru Jin in the rear suddenly contracted, as if seeing an unbelievable scene. Under the setting sun, Ichimaru Jin clearly saw that there was a hole in Uchiha Madara's chest that was exactly the same as that one. As this, a virtual hole. Ichimaru Jin's pupils narrowed suddenly and his expression was complicated. Shocked, unbelievable, and even suddenly enlightened. At this moment, he finally understood why he felt a different breath in Uchiha Madara. The empty hole at the heart is so conspicuous, and this image is unforgettable for Ichimaru Jin. Mr. Madara who gets a long day and night turns out to be a ghost. But, why can't he feel any killing intent on him? Should Shu be the natural enemy of the soul? Ichimaru Jin was puzzled. Brush. Uchiha Madara swung the blade vigorously, and cut the hideous ghost in half with one sword. When the blood splashed on his body, Uchiha Madara seemed to realize something. He raised his head quickly, but met Ichimaru Jin's eyes. It is more than words. You found out. The calm words seemed to be telling a trivial fact. Even though the identity is cruel, Uchiha Madara's mentality still has not changed. Are you hypocritical? Ichimaru Jin stared at Madara calmly. His eyes contained eagerness, doubts, and even a glimmer of hope. In fact, Silver wants Madara to deny. The four eyes met, speechless. The sun sets and night falls. In this hazy night, the atmosphere became extremely oppressive, making one faintly breathless. So what if it is? So what if it's not? Is there a difference? This meaningful rhetorical question immediately stunned Ichimaru Jin. Yes, so what? What about Shinigami? Positions and identities do not represent absolutes. Shinigami's Zanpakuto does not represent justice, nor does Hollow's claws represent evil. Suddenly, Ichimaru Jin thought of the man who wore glasses and always had a gentle smile on his face. Even though they only met once, it can be concluded that that person is a demon who is good at disguising. At this moment Ichimaru Jin was relieved. Even if Madara is false, it doesn't matter anymore. As long as he is still the Mr. Madara that Rengoku can rely on, that's enough. Mr. Madara, thank you for saving Rengoku's life. I will keep your secret forever. Ichimaru Jin narrowed his eyes and suddenly broke into a sincere smile. It was the only time he really smiled from the heart. Abandoning pretense and vigilance is like an agreement made under the night, and never regrets. Whether the identity is exposed or not, I will not watch this child die. Uchiha Madara put his palm on Shu's body, a blue light gushed out from his palm, and immediately swallowed up Shu. This move proved his identity. Contrary to Madara's expectation, Ichimaru Jin was not surprised at all, but remained calm as usual. Mr. Madara, although your identity has been exposed, I can feel that you are not malicious. It's ironic. Shinigami, which has always represented justice and kindness, is not as good as Shu. Ichimaru Jin seemed to be talking to himself. He seemed to recall something. His eyes became extremely cold. Mr. Madara, can I ask you one thing? Ichimaru Jin pondered for a long time, gritted his teeth and finally decided to tell Uchiha Madara the secret. He is willing to pay any price just to kill that man. What's the matter? Uchiha Madara's eyes flickered. He saw too much surprise from Ichimaru Jin. Regardless of his temperament, talent, and ability, Ichimaru Jin is a well-deserved genius. But why did such a genius show such a creepy expression? If you have the chance, kill that man for me. Aizen couldn't help but appear in Ichimaru Jin's mind. Since that day, he has only one goal, to become a Shinigami and kill Aizen. In order to avenge Matsumoto Rengoku, even if it takes decades, even hundreds of years. That man is dangerous, he's like a demon in disguise. I only saw him once, but I'll never forget that feeling. He's the one who hurt Rengoku. Ichimaru Jin's face was cold, and there was unprecedented killing intent in his eyes. I know that the gap between my strength and his is too big, but it doesn't matter. I have decided to become a Shinigami for revenge. As long as I have power, as long as I have the opportunity, even if this opportunity has to wait hundreds of years, it is not hesitating. I see, for you to have this level of hatred, it seems that he has done a lot of harm to Rengoku. But what is his identity? Uchiha Madara became more and more interested in the demon that Ichimaru Jin spoke of. Being good at disguising is a terrifying ability. Long black hair, brown eyes, and a gentle smile on the corner of his mouth. Although I don't know his name, the team logo on his shirt should be the 5th team of Gote 13. The moment you see this person, you will understand how terrible he is. Ichimaru Jin said with murderous intent. I will also participate in the selection of Maoling Academy, but not now. So please, Mr. Madara, if you have the opportunity in the future, even if it is 100 years later, you must help me kill that man. Uchiha Madara smiled meaningfully. After joining Gote 13, what do you plan to do? From now on, such things as emotions will go away from me. I will be a snake with cold skin and no emotions, crawling around looking for prey on the tip of my tongue. When I meet an interesting guy, I will swallow him whole. The corner of Uchiha Madara's mouth curled up into a sinister arc, and he said, is it worth it even if you die? What is there to be afraid of, even death, as long as it can stop Rengoku from crying? Ichimaru Jin came in front of Uchiha Madara, squinted his eyes, and smiled. Then, Mr. Ban, for the sake of Rengoku, please keep the secret between us forever. Until, kill that man. That night passed away peacefully, and nothing else happened. Night is so hazy. With the bright moonlight, the agreement between Ichimaru Jin and Uchiha Madara is buried in my heart forever. This secret will never be known to a third party until everything that belongs to Rengoku is taken back. This is Uchiha Madara's first bond with Soul Society. Although this bond is not deep-rooted, he believes that one day in the future, it will bring great help. Time passed, and it was the next day in a blink of an eye. In the morning, as quiet as ever. After a night of recuperation, Matsumoto Rengoku finally woke up from a coma. She was still in shock, and couldn't even tell whether it was a nightmare or a real accident, because she fell into a coma due to excessive fear the moment Shu appeared. Rengoku, are you finally awake? Matsumoto Rengoku turned to find Ichimaru Jin guarding her side. Besides him, even Uchiha Madara was on the sidelines. Well, I'm fine, thank you for your concern. Matsumoto Rengoku flashed a sweet smile before asking, Silver, is what happened last night true? Hey, I told you not to run around alone, but you passed out in such a remote suburb. It seems that you passed out because of overwork. Ichimaru Jin said with a smile, and there was some sense of blaming Rengoku in his words. But, that monster. Matsumoto Rengoku was puzzled. In her impression, she fainted only after seeing a ferocious monster. How did it get here? Ichimaru Jin said that he passed out due to overwork. Monster. It seems that you have been too tired during this time, so that you are thinking wildly. If it weren't for Mr. Madara's company, I wouldn't be able to hug you. Ichimaru Jin turned his head and smiled at Uchiha Madara. Mr. Ban, look at her, she is still thinking wildly. The corner of Uchiha Madara's mouth curled up, and he said meaningfully, Rengoku, rest more. Silver is right, you are indeed too tired. Matsumoto Rengoku was taken aback. If even Uchiha Madara thought so, maybe she really had an illusion. Sorry, I was just thinking about it and made you worry. Matsumoto Rengoku lowered his head and said softly. That's right, you have a good rest, and I will be responsible for tonight's meal. Ichimaru Jin turned sharply and gestured goodbye to Rengoku with his back turned. What a funny kid. Uchiha Madara looked at Ichimaru Jin's back, showed an inexplicable smile, and left the room immediately. The whole room returned to silence again, and Matsumoto Rengoku lay quietly on the bed with a lump in his head. She always felt that Uchiha Madara and Ichimaru Jin were hiding something, but she couldn't be sure. In this way, 3 months passed quickly. During these 3 months, Uchiha Madara has been able to fully control his Reiatsu, and with Sharingan's pupil power, he can even completely cover his breath. However, the only regret is that the empty hole in front of the chest can never be healed. 3 months later, one morning, when the sun had just risen, 3 figures had already occupied the door of the house. Uchiha Madara, Ichimaru Jin, Matsumoto Rengoku. Mr. Ban, you must be able to pass the assessment. After you successfully graduate and join Gote 13, we will also sign up for the Maoyang Academy. Matsumoto Rengoku pumped his fist and cheered for Uchiha Madara from the bottom of his heart. Mr. Madara, look forward to our meeting again in the 13th team of Hudding Court. Ichimaru Jin squinted his eyes, and his mysterious look was back. Then, See you next time, brats. Uchiha Madara turned away with just a slight nod. Since there is a chance to meet again, why waste too much time? Maybe the next time they meet, the identities of the three will be different. Watching Uchiha Madara's back fade away, Matsumoto Rengoku felt sad. Although 3 months is not a long time, the three of them have established a close relationship. Perhaps, this is the feeling of loved ones. Ichimaru Jin just smiled slightly. He believed that he would be able to meet again, because there is still an agreement between them. Shinigami Institute, also known as Shinigami Institute, is a school for cultivating Shinigami in the Soul Society. It was created by Gotei 13 first team captain and general captain Yamamoto Genryusai. It is worth mentioning that, among the many captains of the 13th division of Ganin, Jishiro Yukitaki and Kyoraku Shunsui are students of the first generation of Spiritual Arts Academy. Entering the Shinigami school to practice and become a Shinigami is the only chance for residents of Rukongai to change their destiny. Therefore, at this time of year, the registration places of the college are always extremely hot. After all, everyone has a dream of being a strong man, and becoming the captain of Gotei 13 is the dream of most residents. Unfortunately, dreams are beautiful, but reality is cruel. Every year, there are countless people who sign up for the assessment of Junyang Lingyuan Academy, but very few people can actually pass the assessment. Even if you successfully enter the academy to practice, it doesn't mean you can sit back and relax. If you want to enter Gotei 13 and become an officer, you have to go through multiple tests. This shows how difficult it is to join Gotei 13. Even so, there are still many people who want to participate in the assessment. Because in this world, strength and power are always the most attractive things. Along the spacious street, Uchiha Madara walked all the way, and finally came to the registration place of Maoling Academy. Registration place of Shino Academy. There are huge crowds of people here, and the scene is extremely hot. This time of year can even be said to be the annual event of Rukongai. Thousands of residents flock here from various parts of Rukongai just to take part in the assessment. Just judging from the appearance, you can know how attractive the assessment of the Junyang Lingyuan Academy is. Since there is no age limit, there are not only teenagers, girls, but also many middle-aged people and slightly old uncles who come to participate in the assessment. In the Tranquil Soul Society, becoming a Shinigami is arguably everyone's dream. However, it is precisely because of the large number of people that there is a long queue here, with no end in sight. The expressions on each candidate's face are different, including nervousness, excitement, anticipation, and even anxiety. It is precisely because of too much attention that such a complicated expression appears. In the Soul Society, Shinigami is the crowning glory and eternal dream. The will of the times to inherit the changes of the times. People's dreams, these are unstoppable. As long as people pursue deliberately, all this will never stop. Seeing this crowd of people, a sad smile appeared on the corner of Uchiha Madara's mouth. At this moment, he felt as if he had returned to that chaotic era. There are no 5 ninja villages, only wars between tribes with different surnames. For the tribe, for the glory, the only way is to become an excellent ninja. The childhood dream finally came true. Uchiha Madara not only became an excellent ninja, but also stood at the top of the ninja world, seeing the unique scenery that only he can see. Time flies, fate reincarnates, everything returns to the starting point and starts again. Changed identity, no longer a human being, but a ghost without a heart. But what remains unchanged is the will of the strong, the original heart of chasing power. Life is always full of ups and downs, the key lies in will. At the top, he is defiant, but at the bottom, he does not lack courage. When Uchiha Madara stepped into the examination room and prepared to line up, a cold and indifferent voice sounded in front of him. Are you a new candidate? Take this number plate and line up at the back of the line. Now in front of Uchiha Madara was a middle-aged man in a black sarcasm suit. He looked arrogant and looked down on the candidates because of his Shinigami status. In fact, he does have arrogance, because in the eyes of Rukongai residents, every dead Shendu symbolizes dignity and strength. Uchiha Madara stared at the Shinigami coldly, and ignored him after taking the number plate from him. Although he is very new to the Soul Society, he has learned a little bit from Asido. Judging by the attire and reiatsu, It's clear that this Shinigami is just a different character, one of the lowest status within Gotei 13. Such people have no arrogance at all, they just pretend to be powerful in front of the weak Rukongai residents. Only the weak will use ignorance as capital to show off. Uchiha Madara turned over the number plate, but saw the number on it was 666, which meant that he was the 666th person to participate in the assessment. It seems that we still have to wait for a long time. Uchiha Madara put away the number plate and waited patiently. He kept observing the crowd in his spare time, but he didn't find any powerful people, which disappointed Madara. Perhaps go to Gotei 13 to meet the so-called elite. Uchiha Madara murmured in a low voice. He tried his best to hide his reiatsu, disguising himself as an ordinary person. As far as he is concerned, if he is overexposed, it may cause some unnecessary troubles. With the long waiting process, time is gradually passing. Number 8, number 20, number 112, number 230. As different numbers are called out, candidates gradually enter the examination room to accept the assessment. At the same time, the number of teams continued to decrease. Every time a new candidate enters the examination room, there must be a candidate who walks out of the examination room. It's just that the expressions on their faces are different. Excitement, ecstasy, loss, sadness. Different emotions come with different results. Once they pass the test, no matter who they are, they will be ecstatic. But once it fails, it can only be dejected. You can't blame others, you can only blame yourself for your poor talent. In fact, this admissions test is not difficult, but very simple. Candidates only need to detect the richness of reiatsu on a special instrument. This point is somewhat similar to the ninja school test. For ordinary souls, the strength of reiatsu represents a person's potential. If a person is born with powerful reiatsu, then there is no doubt that he must be a peerless genius. It's just that most Rukongai residents don't even have any reiatsu, and aren't even qualified to take the exam. After several rounds of screening, several groups of people were eliminated one after another. In the blink of an eye, it was finally the turn of candidate number 600. No, 666. The moment she heard her number, Uchiha Madara opened her eyes, and walked into the examination room calmly under the eyes of the candidates around her. He doesn't have any worries at all, but instead worries about how to hide his reiatsu as much as possible. This test is just a game of disguise for Uchiha Madara. Candidate number 666, please state your name. Opposite Uchiha Madara sat a few men who were also dressed in deadly costumes. Their faces were expressionless, as if they had seen too many failures. Uchiha Madara. The simple 4 words contain a strong self-confidence. Uchiha Madara didn't change his face, and didn't show any respect because of his identity as an examiner. What a candidate with personality. One of the Shinigami spoke. It's just that there is no praise in this statement, but a kind of ridicule. Uchiha Madara, next place your palm on the surface of this special instrument so that the strength of your reiatsu will be detected. The stronger the reiatsu, the brighter the light of the instrument will be. Another Shinigami spoke, but he didn't like Uchiha Madara. Young people with strong personalities are not uncommon, but there are only a handful of people who can be called geniuses. It's that simple. A meaningful arc emerged from the corner of Uchiha Madara's mouth. When he put his palm on the surface of the instrument, the examiners saw an unbelievable scene. The moment Uchiha Madara placed his palm on the instrument, something unexpected happened. I saw a burst of dazzling light shining across the room, dazzling and captivating. This level of light, how is it possible? The previous cynical Shinigami opened his mouth wide and stuttered from the shock. He originally thought that Uchiha Madara was just an arrogant person, so he made a mockery. However, it was unexpected. This level of reiatsu is rare even in the whole of Rukongai. Genius, well-deserved genius. Even though he was dissatisfied with Uchiha Madara's arrogance, another examiner had to admit that Madara did have arrogance. With such terrifying talent alone, Uchiha Madara deserves to be assigned to the top class. And once you successfully graduate from Mauling Academy, entering Gotei 13 is almost a certainty. Maybe in the future Uchiha Madara will even become their boss after becoming the chief. Hiss. Thinking of this, the 3 examiners all gasped in unison. The 3 of them looked at each other, and they could all see the regret and anxiety in each other's eyes. They almost fell out with a rising star. Genius, a well-deserved genius, such a person must be admitted unconditionally. This idea popped up in the minds of the three at the same time, and they all planned to make an exception to admit Uchiha Madara. To be reasonable, there is still a link according to the process. It is to assess whether the candidates are absolutely loyal to Gote 13, which is actually quite a swearing-in ceremony. After all, the purpose of Captain Yamamoto's establishment of Shino Ling Academy was to continuously send talents to Gote 13. However, laws are dead, but people are alive. As veterans, the three examiners all knew that every genius had a certain degree of arrogance. After all, young people who were just fledgling always showed their sharpness. Therefore, for the top talents, the swearing-in link can be skipped. After all, taking an oath is like a shackle. Although it is indispensable, it makes people feel uncomfortable. Just be absolutely loyal to the Soul Society. It doesn't matter if you take an oath or not. Uchiha Madara, you have successfully passed our assessment. Congratulations on becoming a new student of the Shinyang Academy. Due to the change in potential, the three examiners turned their faces faster than turning the book. The cynic from before made Shinigami smile in enthusiasm. It was as if the unpleasant things just now hadn't happened. Did you see that exit? Then you just need to take this card and walk out of that door, and someone will come to meet you. The examiner pointed to another gate and said flatteringly, then I wish you smooth sailing in Junyang Lingyuan Academy and become a member of our Hutting 13th team as soon as possible. In the eyes of the three examiners, as long as they are young people, they will have vanity. As long as you flatter Uchiha Madara before he grows up, he will definitely be able to hold his thighs in the future. However, their ideas are too naive. Uchiha Madara remained silent, with a sarcasm on the corner of his mouth. He didn't care about the hypocritical flattery at all, instead he felt a sense of disgust. In the final analysis, these three people are the moths of Gote 13 in the eyes of Uchiha Madara, and they are no different from garbage. It wasn't until Uchiha Madara left the room that the three examiners breathed a sigh of relief. They leaned tiredly on their chairs, breathing heavily. Although the whole process was short, their backs were soaked in cold sweat before they knew it, and it was all because of Uchiha Madara's eyes. That indifferent but contemptuous look was like two sharp blades hanging in their hearts. This suffocating feeling is uncomfortable. Is he really a newcomer? The three examiners couldn't believe it. Whether it is will or heart, Uchiha Madara is different, without any pretense, as if born with this kind of hockey. On the other side, when Uchiha Madara stepped out of the room, another Shinigami came up to him immediately. This Shinigami's job is to be responsible for bringing the academy to the class it belongs to. When he took the card from Uchiha Madara's hand, his face changed in surprise, and he immediately looked at Uchiha Madara with a bit of envy. Genius, another genius. What is the day? Why is there another genius? The Shinigami shook his head, sighing in frustration. It was because of his poor talent back then that he was assigned to the same class. Although he graduated successfully in the end, he could only be reduced to a miscellaneous player. Another genius has emerged. Are you saying that there was a special person before? Uchiha Madara smelled it with interest. The reason why he was able to have a Reiatsu burst is entirely because he already has a Reiatsu that is comparable to the vice captain level. What's more, it was just a trace of his strength. But if an ordinary resident can have such a Reiatsu, it is really a big deal. Ah, you mean that guy. He has short light yellow hair and a pair of army green eyes, especially his sloppy appearance is very recognizable. As if to be particularly impressed, the Shinigami almost blurted out. I see, it seems like an interesting guy. For some reason, Uchiha Madara always thought this Shinigami genius was an interesting guy. Come on, take me there. Uchiha Madara took a step forward, eyes burning. Come with me. The Shinigami smiled slightly, and he couldn't help feeling that Uchiha Madara was indeed a genius. Both talent and temperament are flawless. Especially those confident eyes are even more intimidating. After walking through the long corridor, Uchiha Madara finally came to the assigned class. When he stepped into the classroom, he immediately restrained his momentum, so he didn't attract the attention of others. After finding a vacant seat in the corner, Uchiha sat down calmly. Gradually, as time went by, the empty classrooms became overcrowded, and all the colleges entered the classrooms one after another. However, there is still a vacant seat next to Uchiha Madara. Suddenly, accompanied by a rush of footsteps, a figure just entered the classroom, which immediately caught Uchiha Madara's attention. Short light yellow hair, army green eyes, and a carefree look. It's him. A curve appeared at the corner of Uchiha Madara's mouth. Since there was only one vacant seat left, the man came next to Uchiha Madara without a doubt. The man scratched his head, sighed and said, "Oh, it's all caused by Liu Kai, it's really troublesome." "Then you are my classmate. It's the first time we meet. My name is Urahara Kazuki." "Nice to meet you, my name is Urahara Kazuki." Urahara Kazuki gave Uchiha Madara a good-natured smile. Although only one side of the fate, but a unique fate. Looking at the slightly immature face in front of him, Uchiha Madara remained silent, observing Urahara Kazuki for a long time. He could even see the extraordinariness of the store manager at a glance. Although he looks foolish on the outside, Urahara Kazuki's eyes have a sense of maturity and mystery that does not match this age group. What's more important is the looming Reiatsu on Urahara Kazuki, whose richness is even far above the academy of this class. Whether it is the heart, Reiatsu talent, Urahara Kazuki can be regarded as the top talent, but he does not leak it. Uchiha Madara. Perhaps out of recognition of Urahara Kazuki, Uchiha Madara rarely responded proactively. "Ariel, Uchiha Madara, what a good name." Urahara Kazuki sat on the seat with a smile. His eyes kept scanning every corner of the classroom, but finally there was a hint of disappointment. Obviously, there were no students he liked. Oh, it really is fate. Urahara Kazuki has a cheerful personality, and he took the initiative to talk to Uchiha Madara. "Oh, it seems that only you, Madara, are stronger than me. It would be a waste of my getting lost to be at the same table with you." "So that's the case, you're right, they are indeed a little bit worse." Uchiha Madara looked around the classroom with nothing but contempt in her eyes. Because most of the academies are not even mentally mature, and they still have daydreams of making a fortune overnight, thinking that they can sit back and relax by joining the Junyongaling Academy. It is strange that such a mind can become a strong person. Urahara Kazuki grinned. "Madara, do you have a dream?" "Dream?" Uchiha Madara paused. The dream was out of reach for him. When he was in the ninja world, his dream was for the village and to stay away from the hustle and bustle of war, so he chose the extreme method of infinite Tsukuyomi, in the final analysis, for the peace of the ninja world. But after coming to Soul Society, Uchiha Madara's dream changed, just to pursue the lost power. Because the so-called dream is a reality that people with strength can talk about. Without power, dreams are nothing but Kyoku Suigetsu. Join Gotei 13 and become a Shinigami. With a simple and rude answer, Uchiha Madara did not hide his intentions. "Ah, presumably you, like most of the students, have the idea that becoming a Shinigami will have a dignified status. Really, what's the point of becoming a Shinigami with that kind of purpose?" Urahara Kazuki shook his head in bewilderment. "In my opinion, the dream is to explore the hidden secrets of this world." Urahara Kazuki narrowed his eyes suddenly, and asked mysteriously, "Don't you think that Soul Society is not as simple as it seems? I've always felt that there must be many secrets hidden behind the peace and prosperity. But that's okay, I'll find out the whole truth one day, and that's why I became a Shinigami." After finishing his impassioned speech, he saw Uchiha Madara's expressionless face and Urahara Kazuki's expression of helplessness. A meaningful arc appeared on the corner of Uchiha Madara's mouth. "I see, your dream doesn't seem to be easy to come true. However, dreams can be extravagant. However, reality is a bumpy road to come out step by step. Hey, don't worry, even when you are confused, you will always remember your dreams." As the conversation progressed, Urahara Kazuki gradually let go. He has a humorous personality, and even though Madara rarely speaks, he still keeps talking. At this moment, a figure walked into the classroom, and the surroundings were suddenly silent. A black death suit with a zanpakuto around his waist. Shinigami. There is no doubt that this Shinigami is the mentor in charge of teaching the students. Ahem. Dear students, I am your mentor, responsible for teaching you the most basic common sense and skills. The mentor stood on the podium and looked down at the audience. Although he was a high-ranking Shinigami, he didn't have the slightest airs, but was approachable. Uchiha Madara could tell at a glance that this Shinigami was not a bit stronger than the previous ones. After all, Those who can serve as the tutors of Junyang Academy are not ordinary people, and they have some skills. Students, if you want to become a Shinigami and successfully graduate from the Shinigami Academy, first of all, you must master 4 basic fighting skills. That is Kido, Shunpo, Zanjutsu, and White Hits. If you master these 4 skills proficiently, your strength can be greatly improved. Of course, you must also be very aware of Shinigami's most proud ability, Zanpakudo. Speaking of Zanpakudo, the mentor smiled slightly. Zanpakudo is the saber used by Shinigami. Its shape and ability are modeled after Shinigami's own soul. By knowing the name of Zanpakudo that Shinigami gave itself, through spiritual communication with it, gain strength through dialogue. Born with the Shinigami and dying with the Shinigami, this is Zanpakudo. Because each person's personality and soul are different, the size, shape, and ability of Zanpakudo are also different. However, the original form of each Zanpakudo is a katana sword, and we call it the sealed state. The instructor pulled out the Zanpakudo from his waist and said loudly, "See. This is my Zanpakudo. Although it looks ordinary, it contains huge energy. You should pay attention. Each Zanpakudo has its own thoughts and characters, so don't think of him as a weapon. At that time, each of you will have a different sealed state. During the practice at Maoyang Lingyuan Academy, you will sleep and eat with this sealed state. Through hard work, you will inject the essence of your soul into the sealed state, creating out own Zanpakudo." Hearing what the instructor said, most of the colleges showed longing. Owning a unique Zanpakudo is the first step to becoming a strong person. Zanpakudo has a soul. How interesting. Uchiha Madara pondered in a low voice, and he immediately contacted the snake-shaped long sword. If the serpentine long sword and sealed state are fused, can Zanpakudo be awakened? Each Zanpakudo has its own soul, so what about my Zanpakudo soul? Uchiha Madara murmured in a low voice, faintly looking forward to it. Since Zanpakudo is built with its own soul, to some extent, Zanpakudo also represents the inner thoughts of a Shinigami. There is an unbreakable bond between Zanpakudo and Shinigami. This bond is so ethereal that even Uchiha Madara herself cannot touch it. Is it the yearning for peace, or the nostalgia for the village, or the friendship with Senju Hashirama? No one knows the answer. The only thing that can be known is that Uchiha Madara has always held the fetters tightly in the palm of his hand. Fetters are like paddling on the lake of fate. The waves rise and fall and man cannot escape the solitary voyage. But if humans lose their way, the bonds will guide the lost through the dawn of another day. Fetters are the will that goes deep into the soul, and it is also the only belief that supports the strong. Uchiha Madara, what are you thinking? Just when Uchiha Madara fell into deep thought, the voice of Urahara Kazuki woke him up from his meditation. Nothing, just thinking about Zanpakudo. Uchiha Madara was expressionless, and returned to the coldness that rejected people thousands of miles away. Urahara Kazuki seemed to be used to this, and said carelessly, "Zanpakudo. Speaking of which, I am also looking forward to what my Zanpakudo will look like." Suddenly, Urahara Kazuki seemed to remember something. He approached Uchiha Madara with great interest, and said softly, "I heard that the materialization of Zanpakudo may be a girl. Do you think our Zanpakudo may be a beautiful woman?" "Boring." Uchiha Madara responded coldly, not wanting to pay attention to Urahara Kazuki's bad taste. "Oh, how embarrassing. Uchiha Madara-san, you don't show any sympathy." Although he said so, Urahara Kazuki didn't have any expression of complaint on his face. On the contrary, he appreciates the unique character of Uchiha Madara, which is the character of a strong man. At this moment, the teacher's voice sounded again. "Of course, even if you are powerful, it is not so easy to awaken Zanpakudo. This requires a process. It's just that this process varies from person to person. It may take 3 months, or even it's half a year, more likely a few years. All in all, the fit between talent and Zanpakudo is everything." But the instructor paused for a moment, and then said, "It will take a few days to get the sealed state. Then let me teach you some theoretical knowledge first." Hearing the instructor's words, expectant looks flashed in the eyes of the students below. They came to the Shinigami Academy with a dream in order to obtain powerful Shinigami power and become a respected powerhouse. No matter which world it is, power is always the most worth pursuing. Without strength, one can only become a weak person. The so-called weakness is a sin. The so-called ideal is a reality that can only be said by those who have strength at the same time. The first is the Kido technique. Kido refers to the spells that we Shinigami can only cast. Different Kido techniques have different chants. The Shinigami tutor patiently explained. As we all know, Kido is divided into two types, Hado Bakudo. There are great differences between them. Among them, Hado has powerful power and is an important means of attack for Shinigami. The power of Bakudo is often not obvious, but it has played a supporting role. Therefore, Kido and Bakudo are indispensable, skills that a Shinigami must master. Instructor Shinigami looked at the puzzled eyes below, smiled slightly, and said, I must have talked about so many conceptual things, you must still be unfamiliar with Kido. It doesn't matter, I will start with low-level Kido, and introduce them one by one. They show. Whether it is Hado or Bakudo, the semicolons are in order from low to high, from 1 to 99 respectively. I think you are also very clear that the higher the number, the stronger the power. Of course, the degree of difficulty is gradually increasing. Especially Hado after number 90 has unimaginable terrifying energy. But even in the entire Gote 13, there are only a handful of people who can master Hado above no. 90. Mentoring the high-ranking Hado, the Shinigami mentor looked yearning. Although he is not weak, he still has not mastered the high-level Hado. However, a skinny camel is bigger than a horse. Even if his strength is not good enough, it is more than enough to be a tutor at Junyang Lingyuan Academy. It's somewhat similar to ninjutsu. Uchiha Madara also has some expectations for Kido. During the days in the Manos Grande forest, he had fought against Asador and learned about the Kido's fur. Although ninjutsu can also be released through Reiatsu, it still doesn't fit well. Only the Kido art developed based on Reiatsu is really suitable for a Shinigami. However, Uchiha Madara discovered the abnormality of Urahara Kazuki. He didn't look forward to it like other students, but instead looked calm. Could it be that he has seen the power of Kido as early as I have? Uchiha Madara's eyes flickered, and he felt more and more that Urahara Kazuki was not simple, as if shrouded in a sense of mystery. Then I will show Hado number 1 next, so you guys have to watch it. The fingers of the Shinigami teacher protruded from the sleeve robe. He volleyed a little, and a small shock wave condensed by Reiatsu shot out from his fingertips and slammed into another wall violently. Card wipe. Under the eyes of everyone, the center of the wall shattered out of thin air, and a hollow appeared. Wow! Suddenly, exclamation sounded in the classroom. The colleges were all amazed, as if they saw an incredible thing. Only Uchiha Madara and Urahara Kazuki, who were sitting in the far corner of the classroom, were unmoved. What's more, no one noticed that Uchiha Madara's pupils had quietly transformed into 3 Tomo Sharingan, and they had a complete insight into the signs of Reiatsu flow in the mentor's body. Utilizing the 3 Tomo Sharingan, the signs of Reiatsu flow in the mentor's body were fully exposed under Uchiha Madara's nose. Whether it is the direction of Reiatsu flow, or the richness of Reiatsu, you can easily see where Reiatsu will reach the arm when you raise your hand. By this act, Uchiha Madara has fully mastered one of Hado. One of Hado can be mastered just by watching the whole thing, a speed that would cause an uproar if word spread. Although it is not unprecedented, it is at least shocking. Of course, this is also because Uchiha Madara has 3 Tomo Sharingan, which has a certain perspective ability and can see through Reiatsu in the body. Although this kind of perspective ability is not as good as Bion, it is still barely applicable. Coupled with the fact that Uchiha Madara is good at controlling Reiatsu herself, it is only a very common thing to be able to learn Kido in an instant. Students, do you see? This is the power of Hado. The instructor withdrew his fingers and explained patiently, the essence of Hado lies in the proficiency in controlling Reiatsu. If it can be retracted and retracted freely, then the Reiatsu that can be used will be denser, and the power of Hado will also be stronger. Okay, students, no matter how much I talk about, it's better for you to practice. Then you try to control Reiatsu, and then condense it into a punch. Remember to control the Reiatsu, that's the key to Hado, the instructor exhorted. As the voice of instructor Shinigami fell, many students were eager to try. Many of the teenagers are full of longing. If they can learn such a cool Kido, they will be able to show their skills in front of ignorant girls when they go back to Rukongai. At that time, the counterattack will only be a matter of minutes. However, the idea is beautiful, but the reality is cruel. When the trainees tried to control Reiatsu with confidence, they felt very difficult. To them Reiatsu is like a flowing liquid and it is difficult to soften them. As they tried again and again, many people's faces were gloomy, and they had no choice but to give up even if they were unwilling. It's almost impossible, really. One of the students was sweating profusely, with a tired look on his face. He tried dozens of times but couldn't succeed, but his mentality exploded. Oh, the instructor is really good. He posed a problem for us at the beginning. It seems that many people have failed. Urahara Kazuki leaned lazily on the back of the chair with his hands crossed behind his head. Although his tone sounded full of complaints, he was actually a laid-back look. Are you right, Uchiha Madara? Urahara Kazuki turned his head and grinned at Uchiha Madara. It's just that the three-tomo Sharingan had disappeared long before his eyes reached Madara's face. Perhaps, it is an impossible task for them. With a look of indifference, Uchiha Madara doesn't seem to have the slightest interest in Hado. Urahara Kazuki shrugged, and said with interest, "Tisk tisk, it seems that these students are worthless in your eyes. Aren't you the same? You didn't take them seriously in the first place." Without warning, Uchiha Madara uttered these words, causing Urahara Kazuki's pupils to constrict suddenly. What do you mean by that? Urahara Kazuki's brows were slightly frowned as the carefree expression gradually subsided. One of Hado, rush. As soon as Uchiha Madara pointed out, a blast shot out from his fingertips and shot straight to Urahara Kazuki's arm. Grasp Hado just by looking at it, you are a scary guy. Urahara Kazuki wasn't surprised at all, as if he had expected this scene early on. He unhurriedly stretched out his fingers, and also shot out a rush of air. Boom! The two blasts collided with each other, and then dissipated in the air. You are exactly as I expected, Urahara Kazuki. A curve appeared on the corner of Uchiha Madara's mouth. The reason why he took the initiative was to test Urahara Kazuki's details. Because at the moment he opened three-tomo Sharingan, he accidentally scanned Urahara Kazuki's body, only to find that there was a strong Reiatsu in his body. Although it is not majestic, it is far above ordinary students. All each other. That's why I deliberately chose to be next to him. Although I can't see your details, you give me a different feeling, especially that unique temperament, and it is even less likely to appear on ordinary people. Urahara Kazuki's expression froze, and then he smiled slightly. So, from now on, we will really know each other, right? Well, compared to those brats, you are an interesting guy. A simple sentence, but it illustrates the great potential of Urahara Kazuki. You must know that Uchiha Madara was a man who once stood at the top of the ninja world, and his vision was terrifyingly high. It is not easy to get his appreciation. Tisk tisk, you also gave me the feeling of old friends at first sight. Urahara Kazuki turned into that foolish look again, as if nothing happened. At this moment, the teacher's voice sounded again. Okay, students, you must have tried it many times. Then let each student come to the podium one by one to demonstrate. The teacher Shinigami's words immediately caused the whole classroom to explode. Most of the students looked embarrassed because they hadn't mastered the first Hado yet. Wouldn't it be embarrassing to show off at this time? It seems that the good show has begun. Urahara Kazuki has no pressure at all with the mentality of watching a movie. Although Uchiha Madara doesn't agree with these little devils, he also wants to see that there are other hidden talents besides Urahara Kazuki. In this way, the first demonstration kicked off as the Shinigami instructor picked up the student list and read out the first name. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.